Members of the family aging, it's been a long time, can you tell? I'm grateful to be standing in front of you today to speak about House Bill 465, or better known as Lauren's Law. Lauren Carter is a 36-year-old Ohio woman who is developmentally disabled and has been a victim of disturbing abuse and neglect while in intermediate care for 3 decades. Imagine, if you will, if you have children, your child being left behind on a bus in the middle of July, Ohio July, for 5 hours, suffering in unforgivable heat with no ability to move around themselves, drink, or eat. Or, imagine, if you will, your child's throat was cut, but those caring for them don't know how the incident that left your child needing stitches happened. These are just some of the horrible things in a long list of incidents that happened to Lauren over the years. Lauren's parents have requested to have cameras in the facilities, but they've been rejected numerous times. Now, you may think to yourself, those of you that know, shouldn't Esther's Law allow cameras in the room to document what's going on? Well, I would agree with you. I was on that committee. Unfortunately, Esther's Law only mandates this in nursing homes and not facilities that Lauren is in, which is an intermediate care facility. Lauren's Law will close this loophole and bring much-needed assurance and raise regulations to client care facilities. This legislation will also provide payments from the Medicaid waiver program to families caring for loved ones at nearly the same rate it pays facilities. Families who want to and are able to be a full-time caretaker for their children should be able to do so. Now, there are many opponents to this bill who will say that families don't have the same costs that facilities have: insurance, specialized equipment, and facilities. However, I would point out that paying a family member to take care of their loved one shouldn't concern our taxpayers, because the same amount of money is being used, whether it's used to support the family or the facility. I personally was a caregiver to both my mother and father. When they were in and out of care facilities, I took on that responsibility. Was I paid? No. Did I need to be paid? No. But I would have taken it if needed. I will always be a strong advocate for protecting Ohio's most vulnerable. Lauren's Law is a step in the right direction to help families who are in desperate need of better care for their loved ones. And let me emphasize, loved ones. Many just do this because they love them and they can. Now is the time for the legislature to be a voice for those who feel like they don't have one. Thank you, Chairwoman Schmidt, for bringing this crucial legislation before the committee today. Should this legislation receive a second hearing, and I do hope it will, you will hear about these firsthand tragedies from Lauren's family and many others. It will be eye-opening, it will be upsetting, because it has been to me. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I believe that the people that will testify will have much more information than I. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I do have a couple of questions. Could you explain the difference between an intermediate care facility and a nursing home, and what those facilities do for the individuals that are residing there?
These are for a younger group of people. You couldn't put Lauren, say, in a nursing home. She has feeding tubes, she has some other issues. She walks around constantly, and her father made a wonderful board for her to do different things with to keep her active. This is not an elderly person who, she's immobile, but she's not immobile. she isn't thinking. She's not able to tell you what's going on with her. Whereas an elderly person in a nursing home many times can say, ow, that hurts, or something like that. She's not going to be able to do that. She is in an immediate, she's not going to need to go to a nursing care facility for many years.
It's a whole other realm, and we have a few of them. We have some wonderful facilities in Ohio, but we also have some poor ones, just like everything else, just like nursing homes. So it's a different age group, it's a different care type. She needs a different type of care than a nursing home.
I'd like to ask a follow-up. Lauren cannot live on her own, correct?
Through the chair, correct. She cannot do any of the things on her own, no.
My follow-up to you is this: there's really no difference between the intensity of the need for a camera from a nursing home from or an intermediate facility. Am I correct on that?
Through the chair, there is absolutely none. As a matter of fact, I rather look at it like those of us that have children that would prefer to have a nanny cam. I think, many times you're doing it to find out if somebody's stealing, but you also want to know if your child is safe. I had a camera in my children's room. I knew they were fine. I didn't have anyone that I didn't trust, but I also enjoyed watching them. Sometimes you just want that safety of knowing they're okay in their cribs. Many of us panic about SIDS when they're first born, and so you want to just make sure they're breathing a lot of times. It's just a way of knowing that they're okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Schmidt, and thank you for bringing forward this bill, Representative. I saw you covered the roommate question very thoroughly in the analysis, but it's absolutely horrific to consider that individuals who can't speak out against abuse are subjected to it. And we saw some horrific examples in the media last year. I guess one of the questions I have is, when you are envisioning having a camera set up for their protection, what kind of safeguards are in place to make sure it doesn't also become a tool of abuse? Because I recall a media release last year up in my area where a caregiver was taking photographs of someone in their care in states of undress or different things like that. And how do you monitor that with the camera if it's providing information to the family member without it becoming a problem?
Well, through the chair to Rep. Feller Arthur, I think we already have a lot of those in place through Esther's law. And we were very particular in that also. And I think we can use those same tools. We really did a good job on that. Were you on that committee? Okay. We did a good job with that. And I think we can use those same tools to prevent that. Now, I'm not saying we're going to prevent it 100%, because the internet is the internet and we're all horrified by a lot of it. But I think we can prevent a great deal of harm.
Representative White?
Chair Schmidt, Representative Carruthers, thank you for bringing this bill. I just wanted to clarify, the intermediate facilities for people with intellectual disabilities and disabilities, are they primarily run by the state or both private and state run?
Private and state run is.
Thank you.
I'm through the chair to Rep. White. I believe they're both primarily state and private. It's very difficult to maneuver through finding the right one for your loved one.
Representative Brewer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Carruthers, for bringing this bill forward. Two quick questions. How do we make sure that this does not be used as a tool for staffing? Making sure that someone who may be in one of these facilities, the nurse actually really does come and check on a patient check on the patient versus looking at them just through a camera? So how do we make sure this is not being used as a substitute for staffing?
Through the chair, I think there's a great tool actually on the opposite side, because you can say, oh, look, they checked that time, they checked that time, they checked that time. I think it's a good check and balance, because the management can always go back and say, nope, you didn't check this amount of times, you're out.
Last question, follow-up question. Thank you, Madam Chair. The last question is, how can we, I know this bill addresses the electronic monitoring, but can this bill, or how does this bill address the other issues that may come along with development delays, such as quality of care, accessibility, and some comprehensive supportive services? Does this bill look at anything around those type of issues, and does it just look at the aspect of monitoring?
Through the chair, I'm not sure I really,
Such as broader issues like, there are other issues that deals with developmental care, such as supportive services, the need for more supportive services in there, the need of accessibility, like you just described in your testimony. Does this bill address any of that, or is it just mainly focused on just the?
through the chair, it's mainly focused on this, just as Esther's law was.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Fowler-Arthur?
Thank you, Chair Schmidt and Representative. I have a question on the other piece, but the payments to the family members. I'm familiar with some family members who've sought payment in the current structure and really had a difficult time. And I just was wondering if you could summarize how you envision this smoothing the process, since it would still have obviously some guardrails to make sure that the individuals are receiving the care that they're purported to receive.
Through the chair, I'm sure I will have some blowback on that. I don't see that being an easy hill to climb, to be honest. Dealing with that is never easy, as you know. So we're going to have to see. We're going to have to work our magic in the legislature to try and make that happen. But I think for me, I was very blessed in that I took off work and did things. It was not necessary for that income. Side note, as a representative, there was a woman in Cleveland that came to my committee that is the obvious caretaker, and I believe Chairwoman Schmidt will remember this, who was the obvious caretaker of everyone in her family. She can't work. Every time she goes back to work, someone in her family falls apart. So she has to leave her job. If there is a way of, this woman haunts me to this day when I was chair of Home and Health. If there is a way of making this work, I want it to work for none other than that woman alone. She is the obvious caregiver. There seems to always be one caregiver in a family. You can have brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, but there's always one. And this woman was the one. And she had to give up job after job to care for everybody else. And it was painful to watch because I understood her. And so if there's a way of making it work, I want to. I'll negotiate, I'll do whatever we have to do, so.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Representative White.
Thank you, Chair Schmidt. Thank you, Representative. Just to clarify, and I'll dig into the details of the bill, but if you have an idea of how much roughly these payments would be based on typical payments, and then the other thing I wondered is, what if a family has multiple individuals? How would that work out? Would they get paid per individual, that amount?
Through the chair, have not gone into that. I think that's something we need to look at. That is a question we haven't really dealt with because, as I said, it usually comes down to the one person, and you can usually spot the one person. They look very tired. Point blank, they look very tired.
To clarify, Chair, what I mean is like if there's two children with disabilities.
I see what
Yeah,
you're saying.
Thanks.
Okay, yes. Have not gone into that. That's, right now, we're just dealing with, I have been stunned with who all has reached out to me since dropping this bill. So, as I said, bring tissues, because if it has another hearing or multiple, it's going to be sad.
Are there any other questions of the witness? If not, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That will conclude the first hearing on House Bill 465. Is there anything else to come before the committee? Hearing none, we are adjourned.